everyday thing. It's an everyday thing. It's an everyday thing when you let your nuts hang. In 2011, I secretly divorced my ex-husband. And then in 2021, I thought we all were finna die from COVID, so I finally decided to give him a second chance. Now, there were a lot of things that we were seeing on the healthcare side that was not being shared with the general public because they didn't want to cause mass hysteria. But seeing bodies physically be carried out by the dozens in trash bags did something to my psyche. I wasn't thinking straight clearly to even consider taking this man back. Now, he still lived in our hometown and I lived in suburban Houston, and one of the stipulations was that he would have to move to me. I had a beautiful house, my career was thriving, and I wasn't going to uproot and go back to Chicago in order to reconcile with him. So in the interim, every 2 to 3 weeks, he's flying me back home. Now, he was afraid to fly, and I'm a frequent flyer, so it just made sense for him to send for me each time. So we spent all the holidays together, but for my birthday, I took a solo trip because it was already planned months prior to him and I deciding that we was going to try to reconcile, and I wasn't in the mood to add a +1. It had already costed me too much money. And then I went to a Christmas party at the Red Rooster in Houston. I will never forget, and I'll show y'all some pictures in here as well. But I ended up getting COVID for the 3rd time. And it was in that moment that I started to feel like Risa Tisa and who the fuck did I marry? At one point, I was in the hospital on oxygen, and this man is blowing up my phone. Why aren't you answering? Share your location, etc. Share my location? Or so I thought. Now, at the time, I had a best friend of 22 years. Naturally, they had each other's phone number, and I noticed that they had been talking to each other quite a bit. So for the upcoming trip, which was going to be Christmas/New Year's, the plan was me to fly into my hometown, and then he and I were going to drive up to the cabins together. And he kept hinting at he wanted to make a change or do things different coming into the new year. Bro, why I go in here to pick up my dog? And the supervisor was like, who? He's not here. Bitch, what? So yeah, I'm in a pissy ass mood. Y'all gonna have to come back from part 2 because I thought I was gonna go to jail instead of go to work. First, let me just say what happened to my dog. I flew to New York on a day trip, and so I took my dog for boarding. And then my return flight was delayed, so I called them and let them know I wasn't gonna make it yesterday to pick him up. So they transferred him in the system to pick up on Monday. So when I came and said I was there to pick up Dash, she said, who? I said, Dash. She starts scrolling the computer. She says, he's not here. I said, go get your supervisor. She said, I am one of the supervisors. I said, baby, well, you better get some help or you're going to need help. I don't play about my motherfucking dog. Not to mention that Frenchie was $12,000. So the guy behind me says, oh, I remember checking him in. I said, no shit. I remember dropping him off. He's here. It took them 30 fucking minutes to find my dog. So my birthday is on Thursday. He's supposed to went back on Wednesday. I said, you could cancel that upcoming fucking appointment because he won't be here. So I was pissed for the rest of the day. So anyway, I think I left off on the part where we were supposed to be spending Christmas Day through the New Year together in a cabin. But because I had COVID, the airline canceled my flight because, of course, I called and told him I had COVID. So he was pissed. That sent him through the roof. So from that point on, I knew shit wasn't going to work out. It was kind of rocky, and I felt like I had a feeling he was going to try to propose again during that time. So I finally get back to work, and the hospital that I was working at is in a small little town, and so the signal is bad. And so on my lunch break, I would eat before lunch, and then I would go out and walk. So I noticed that when I went out on my break, I had a lot of missed calls from a random number, but the area code was from Mississippi. And I'm like, who in the fuck is calling me from Mississippi? Now, my dad's folks live in Mississippi, and I've had that phone number at the time for 24 years. So I'm thinking like, oh, maybe it's my cousins or somebody that I haven't talked to in a long time. So I didn't call the number back. I worked the rest of my shift. I take my drive home. And as soon as I sit down on the couch, my phone starts going off again. Now, most people that know me know I go to bed early, but for some reason I was still up on the couch at about 10 o'clock. So I text the number and I'm like, who are you looking for? And she says my name. And at the time I didn't know it was a she, but they said, I'm calling you about, and she says my ex-husband's name. So immediately I call his phone because I'm trying to figure out, why is a bitch calling me about you? And just like a hoe, he didn't answer the phone. So I take my youngest daughter's phone. She's in the next room in the game room. I take her phone and I call him. He picks up right away. So I ask him, why the fuck is somebody with a Mississippi number calling me? And he's like, oh, ignore them, block them. So since he was adamant on telling me to block her, I decided to call her instead. I call her and she says her name. And the name sounds familiar, but it didn't ring a bell at first. And then she starts to say she found my number and some other women's number in his phone. And she's just trying to figure out what's going on because she thought that we were divorced. And I said, well, how do you know that? And then she said, don't you remember me? I'm XYZ. And she went to high school with him. We all grew up together. So then I say to her, well, aren't you married? And I said, well, why are you calling me about my ex-husband and you got your own husband? So I tell her, well, let's get him on three-way and let's just get this shit all sorted out because I'm about to lay down for bed because I got to work in the morning. And she says, we don't need to get him on three-way. He's sitting right here with me. The sound of his voice made my ass itch. I loved him, but I wasn't in love with him. In fact, we even joked about how much we hated each other. Like, we could not stand each other at one point. Now, he was older than I was, and he claims that he was raised on the premise till death do us part. So he used to always joke about the only way out was death. And I made it adamant, if anybody was gonna die, it was gonna be him. But since I had children and I didn't want to risk my career, I knew I had to get creative. So I had to find my way out that didn't require his permission. So I tried to serve him papers a couple of times before and he refused to sign. And I'm going to insert some text messages even from him after he found out. So it took him about 5 years before he found out that we were actually divorced. But he still would refer to me as his wife. All of my friends, he would still be contacting them, talking about my wife, my wife, my wife. And so when he found out, I was just like, oh, well, you know, like the cat's out of the bag. But he would always say that he made a promise to his dad that he was going to make it right with us. And then his dad passed away before we even reconciled. But anyway, the reason you're here, I got so many questions and I can't get to all the messages. So it's called, excuse me, divorce by publication. And the process goes like this. You go in, you file your petition for dissolution of marriage, and you tell the judge, I don't know where he's at. I don't have or you can say I don't have a current address on him, etc. Which I didn't have his current address because I had cut all communication with him. Once I decided that I wanted out and I moved, I blocked him. So the judge then allowed me to post the ad in the law newspaper. Now, I ain't trying to be funny, but niggas don't read the regular paper, let alone the law newspaper. Typically, only lawyers read that. The ad had to run for at least 6 weeks. It's a notice to let him know that somebody has filed for divorce. If he wants to contest it or file his answer, he has 6 weeks to do so. During that 6 weeks, I didn't tell anybody anything. I kept my mouth closed. I made sure I had no communication with him or his family. Once the 6 weeks were up, I got a default judgment for dissolution of marriage. I also did all of this for free. So when I called him from my daughter's phone, he must have stepped in the restroom to take the call. So by the time he came out of the bathroom, I was on the phone with her. So you can hear them tussling in the background, and then eventually the phone hangs up. I wait a few minutes. She doesn't call me back, so I try to call her back, and now my calls are going to the voicemail. So she blocked me. In the interim of me calling her back, my daughter calls him from the other room because she hears what's going on. Typically, I'm all for kids staying in a child's place, but at this point, I needed to get to the bottom of this shit. She was about 15 at the time. And of course, like clockwork, she calls and he answers. And so she's like, what's going on with my mama? And then as she's talking to him, she's bringing me the phone. Oops. So once he gets on the phone, I'm going to just call her Tanisha. I said, why is Tanisha calling me about you? Don't she have her own husband? And why are y'all together? Anyway, what is it that she wants from me so I can go ahead and go to bed? So she's in the background hooting and hollering. And she says, tell her I'm the one who's been paying for all her flights to come back home. Quick commercial break. Let me talk about my scent of the day real quick. Yesterday I got a package, and I love when y'all address it like this. The Gourmet Nurse. Why? Because the delivery drivers always ask me, oh, are you an influencer? No, bitch, I'm a hustler. No, just playing. Anyway, I got the fire kit from Lucretia Body Oils and Sprays. I could already smell it. This will be in my date night scent, like angry. So I started communicating. So then she tells me initially they started communicating because he was talking to her about me, and that she is the one who told him that I divorced him. Because remember, I told y'all he didn't know for about 5 years that we were divorced. But I guess, and I also showed y'all in the last video where he still referred to me, to everybody, as his wife. So I guess to secure her spot, she had to first prove to him that I was no longer his wife. So then she tells me like they have been communicating or like they used to date in high school. And so they had over 30 years of history, and she wanted to act on that. He and I have been dealing with each other for like a little over 20 years off and on. And so I was like, okay. And so she said, everybody knows about me. And I think she thought she was going to make me angry. But what I started to do was pull out receipts. So I sent her photos of like me with the family. Remember, I told you we were spending holidays together. So I show her the photos of me, his mom, grandma, their children, cousins, everybody. She was sick. And I'm going to upload some of our text messages at the end of the video here because I'm late for work. Now sis is suicidal, asking me for advice. You went from being the side bitch to the main bitch, only for him to ask you for permission to keep talking to his ex. You left the army and became a nurse because his ex-wife was a nurse. His ex-wife lives in Houston, so you moved to Dallas. You changed your look and now wearing curly wigs because that's what his ex-wife liked to wear. You're the main chick getting treated like the side chick because you were knowingly being a side chick. Everything that could go wrong for y'all was going wrong. And so now he starts calling his ex, asking if she has a position available in her company for him because y'all struggling financially. I couldn't imagine paying to be in a man's life knowing that he was giving that money to somebody else. Y'all be wanting these men so bad that you do anything to get them and then don't know how to keep them. And since I got tired of him calling me and harassing me and texting me, telling me she gave him permission to call me, after 24 years, I changed my phone number. And now the nigga can't reach me.
Interesting. Listen. It sounds as if she didn't want him, but she was still playing around with him. It's like she didn't want to move on, but she didn't want to move on and find another man because that man was still at her beck and call, but she knew she didn't want to be with him. And maybe the family was still good to her, so it was like she could still be around them and not feel like she had to get to know somebody else. And she likes comfortability, so she was still in that relationship with that man. And when that other woman started to call, even though she knew she divorced him, she knew they weren't together legally, but in the back of her mind, that's still her man to call on. And that man still loved her, but she knew that that man wasn't good enough to be a husband, but she could just keep him around. Was she still having sex with him? I believe she was. But I believe that she had came to the conclusion that it would never be, and she knew what she was getting into, so she just left it alone, and she could easily walk away. She doesn't seem like sex was moving her, so it was what it was, and he was going back and forth in and out her life. Even though she would block him, but she would still have holidays with the family. I didn't understand that too much. But it is what it is. Now the side chick, you got exactly what you pulled up to. You saw it in writing. You know, he never loved you. He was still calling this woman his wife. He didn't even understand that they wasn't even married. So that's how out of touch he was with his wife, that he didn't even realize that they were divorced. So the fact that he was playing her like a side chick, and she wasn't even a side chick, she was playing a side chick, and she knew that she wasn't a side chick. She knew she was the chick, and he was so delusional that he didn't even know that he no longer had a wife, and that he was cheating on nobody, that he was just looking like a fool because he wasn't playing the wife. She was basically just toying with him because that's all she needed him for, was maybe some sex here and there, and maybe some good conversation every now and then. But I don't think that it was something. I think that he was pretty much out of it, and he didn't really care for her, but he probably still told her how much he loved her and respected her, but he was disrespecting her at the same time. So but again, I don't get the I don't I don't get the her still playing with him for 5 years and taking him back and all that. I don't get that. Even through the COVID situation, like um maybe that was a thought of, hey, I might need to get back with him and all this stuff like that. But and then the side chick, to the nerve of her being married still and falling in love with this man, it's crazy in itself too, because the man that you're still married to, probably still loves you, and you're in love with another man. You're calling another woman about her husband, who, not even her husband, her ex-husband, but he still believes that he was married to her, which the truth, that he's not married to her, and you're still married legally. I mean, that's just a messy situation. It's just like, it's so many emotions that could be going on in this whole little love triangle. It's not a square, because the husband to the other woman is not a factor in this story, but we know he's there because he's still married to this woman. And when that divorce is gonna come is who knows, because this woman knows that they're still married, and I'm pretty sure she reached out to him and was like, hey, you need to divorce this woman because she's over here with this man doing XYZ, calling my phone about this man, and I hope y'all not planning on working nothing out, because look how it seems like it's going. And it looks like it's all bad. So yeah, man. Shout out to this lady, the gourmet nurse, the gourmand nurse. I don't know what that means.
Ah.